say the movie offers a sensational false perception of child trafficking that could further harm real victims, or on how a Vice investigation into the anti-trafficking group at the center of the film found a pattern of image burnishing and mythology building, a series of exaggerations that are in the aggregate quite misleading. But I'd rather focus on the star of the movie, actor Jim Caviezel. You may remember him from the 2002 hit movie The Count of Monte Cristo, or even Mel Gibson's controversial Passion of the Christ, in which Caviezel played Christ. But what you may not know about Jim Caviezel is that he is now a peddler of the kookiest, weirdest, craziest, most dangerous conspiracies in American public life. Yes, he's gone full QAnon.
A lot of this rhetoric that's in the movie sounds an awful lot like the #SaveTheChildren thing that was happening a while ago, which is its whole own separate thing. I don't have time or the strength to get into that today, but that was sort of an offshoot of a QAnon belief, again, that like high up government officials and elites are actively participating and perpetuating in particularly child sex trafficking. So the reason I want to talk about the film is because it's been heavily criticized by folks who are actual experts in the field of human trafficking. And for good reason. There's a lot of misinformation and like perpetuation of myths that happen in the movie. But also there's a lot of
Steve Bannon's podcast and mention adrenochrome. That's a hormone that QAnon supporters believe global elites harvest from child victims as an alleged life-extending elixir. Now, QAnon's described by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a spiderweb of right-wing internet conspiracy theories, but
on June 27th, 2023, a week before the movie, stating specifically that did not happen. They did not rescue the boy's sister. Now, if they don't want to hear the court reports and the Border Patrol agent reports that I have provided, you could simply play that video of Tim Ballard's own words and then OUR statement saying that it never happened, that Tim Ballard's really just been lying all these years. For 10 years, he's been stating this story going back to either 2013 or 2014. So it's just that easy, guys.
The AC was out, like, when we went to watch the movie. And I'd seen someone else post something, too, that also saw it at an AMC. And their AC was out. And, like, as soon as we walked into the theater, it was hot as heck.
I literally brought a sweatshirt, and I was, like, sweating.
And then we realized, like, it took us a while to actually realize it, but they didn't turn the lights off.
They literally had the lights on.
They kept the lights on the entire movie.
Who does that?
Like,
they don't want you to see this movie.
They were trying to make it, like, not enjoyable.
No.
Like, they were trying to make it unenjoyable.
What do they think? We're just going to be like, oh, the lights are on, we're going to leave. Like, no. Go watch Sound of Freedom.
Theaters for a few reasons. Number one, because my month is already packed with a lot of movies. I mean, there's Indiana Jones. I have to. My dog is named after his dog, you know. There's Oppenheimer, there's Barbie, there's a lot of, you know, important cinema to see. And second, no matter how good this movie may be, I'm disgusted by the true story behind it, and I don't want to give my precious money to awful people. Now, if you're aware of my channel's usual content, you might guess that the awful people that I'm referring to are QAnon conspiracy theorists. After all,
a lot of like long-running, like well-established anti-sex trafficking organizations have come out over the years and spoken out against his organization and him, saying that what they do harms the actual real work, much like QAnon. And this guy actually, when QAnon was first starting to get big, like he jumped right in. He was happy to use QAnon to promote his own endeavors here. I mean, this guy isn't like QAnon adjacent. He was pushing this type of stuff.
Hijacks the #SaveTheChildren, which is a real organization, just essentially for QAnon memes. They have no real interest in supporting organizations that actually want to combat child trafficking.
Right. Yeah. Right. It really is like the sort of perfect grift, isn't it? Make a movie about
working sex trafficking cases, and I can tell you, you're exactly right. One little girl I can tell you about. In fact, I introduced this little girl to Miss Trump. During a private briefing. This little girl was kidnapped in Central America, 11 years old, groomed for 2 years, with the intent of getting her ready to come to America. Why? Because we are the highest consuming nation of child pornography. We are the clientele that's the big money. They brought this little girl through a part of the southern border where there was no wall, easily got her to New York City, and this is hard to hear, but this is the truth, and everyone needs to hear this. This little girl, and this is very typical, raped for money every day, 30 to 40 times a day. If that's not a crisis, if that's not an emergency, I don't know what is. Now let me say this, had there been a wall, had there been a barrier, this little girl likely would have been saved, because the traffickers would have been forced to take this child through the port of entry, where we have amazing law enforcement. I've worked with these people. These are the best people on the planet. They can detect, they have equipment, they have trained agents. In contrast, while this was happening, I was working another case. A little boy, a Mexican boy who was kidnapped by an American trafficker by a child pornographer. He kidnapped Mexican children, brought them to San Bernardino County, where he had a makeshift studio, made child porn with these little children, 5 years old. This little boy was kidnapped in Mexicali, Mexico, where there was a wall, where there is a barrier, and so he was forced to take this little boy through the Calexico port of entry, and guess what? It worked. We captured him. We rescued the little boy, and subsequently rescued 12 other children in San Bernardino, California. The difference between those two cases is 2 + 2 = 4. The wall was the difference. The wall rescued this little boy, and the lack of a wall caused this little girl to go through a hell that is indescribable, that is not manufactured. It is a real crisis. It is a real emergency.
And you have many thousands of people like this.
Thousands. This is happening all the time.